Hello, beautiful people of the internet. My name is Ryan, and welcome to a channel update video. I'm here to update you on everything that I read, watched, listened to, etc. during paternity leave. In case you didn't know, just a couple months ago, my wife and I had a child. Specifically, she delivered the child. I was involved a little bit, but just barely. And so I took a couple months off of creating content and playing games for you all on the internet. And instead, I hung out with my family. And I don't know if you've been around a newborn much in your life, but they do a lot of sleeping, and you don't do a lot of sleeping, which meant that I had a ton of time to do almost everything other than play video games. I really did not play almost any video games for like 3 months. And I thought, hey, on this channel, we care about stories writ large, excellent, sort of content or art. And maybe I could share that stuff with you, and it could be fun for maybe you and also definitely for me. But first, I want to talk to you about the next game that I'm going to play on YouTube. This video is brought to you by, this is a fake sponsorship. It's not an actual sponsorship. My newest YouTube series, which is starting tomorrow, the day after this video goes live on YouTube. We're going to start a new blind playthrough of a video game, and I'm very excited to tell you all about it. The game that I've been playing and recording during my paternity leave has been The Forgotten City. The Forgotten City falls into a category of games that I really love. A game with a mystery at its core that uses clever game mechanics and really thought-provoking writing to let you untangle that mystery in a way that you will not forget and which you cannot experience twice. If you're a fan of games like Outer Wilds, Return of the Obra Dinn, Tunic, oh boy, drop everything and play this game right now, and then come back and watch me play it. It's not a very long game, and I'm really excited for you to watch this series. This game has some of the smartest writing that I've seen in a game recently, and I just think it's a unique, incredible game. I am so excited for you guys to see that series. I have worked hard on The Forgotten City with the little slivers of time over the last couple of months, and I just have such fond memories of playing the game over the last month or so, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys think. But anyways, hey, let's do it. What did I watch, listen to, read, etc. over the course of the last month? Maybe I should move this way, and we can sort of use this area to show stuff off. The first thing that I watched, I basically am a person who does not watch TV or watch movies. It's way too sit still and do nothing for me. I like to be actively doing something almost all the time. That's my variety of mental illness. And so I don't watch stuff. However, in like the weeks after our daughter was born, I started watching Severance, which I think is on Apple TV Plus. And this was maybe the best thing that I watched or consumed over paternity leave. The TV show is amazing. In case you don't know what Severance is, it's basically, it's one season so far. And it's the idea of what if you could sort of sever your consciousness in two and split it up in terms of the parts of you that go to work and work your terrible day job in an office for 8 hours a day. And you could split that from the part of you that gets to spend your weekends and evenings and the fun parts of your life. If you could do that, wouldn't the one half of you that gets to do the fun stuff just be so much happier? And of course, the dark undertone question to the dark undercarriage of that question is, and wouldn't the half of you that only knew work, wouldn't they be, miserable beyond belief? The show takes that question, does an amazing season, exploring that and introducing very interesting characters. I really loved Severance. I am so excited. They announced that a season 2 is coming, I think, in January. And my only question is how anyone who watched season 1 has been waiting. How have you been patiently waiting for 2 years for the, for answering the cliffhanger at the end of season 1? How have you been patiently waiting? Because I'm impatient, and I watched the show like a year and a half late. Severance was awesome. The next thing I watched is actually something I rewatched. I rewatched a couple things I rewatched. I rewatched Interstellar, which is an amazing movie about space. I love space very much. I love astrophysics and the cosmos and etc. We'll talk more about that later. But Interstellar as a movie blew me away probably 9 years ago. I don't know when I first watched it. And I loved it for the space. And this year, I rewatched it with my 1-month-old daughter sleeping in my arms because she likes to contact a nap, and or at least she did. That was the only way she napped for a couple months. And it turns out that movie's about parenthood. And I cried a lot. But it turns out that movie has dimension to it in a way that I was not aware of 9 years ago when I was a young 20-something without a kid. Interstellar's incredible. You know that. The other thing I rewatched Twin Peaks season 1 and 2. This is my favorite TV show. I love it so much. I return to it very often. Twin Peaks, for those of you who don't know, it's how would you even describe it? I don't know. It's David Lynch, so it's like very surreal, like hyper real. It's kind of like it's like a really smart person took like Days of Our Lives and made it actually interesting and good. No, I was about to say no shade to Days of Our Lives, or one of those like long-running soap opera is the word I was looking for. But absolutely, I mean shade to those shows. Yeah, Twin Peaks is incredible. I love it so much. I love the characters. And I rewatched seasons 1 and 2. I still have not watched the updated season that happened a couple years ago, and I need to do that. But for some reason, the nostalgia of the old shows was really great. That's right. I watched 2 whole TV shows, or most of 2 TV shows, and 1 movie over my paternity leave. I'm feeling really proud of myself. Actually, I also rewatched Ocean's 11 one night when I couldn't sleep. So that makes, that makes 2 whole movies in the last 3 months. That's PR for me. That's pretty great. What did I read? Well, I read probably my favorite book of this year, a book that I have heard a lot about in terms of recommendations. I read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. The book is fantastic. I am obsessed with it. I started it and was sort of moving slowly through it for probably a couple months, and then I just kept gaining momentum, and all of a sudden I was tearing through it just a couple weeks ago at this point. The book, in case you don't know anything, it's basically the story of 2-3 friends who make video games, which is interesting, but I would say the video games are like, in a great way, the least interesting part of the book. The video games are very interesting. It's really cool to see a literary fiction take on video game and video game industry stuff, and video games as art. That's really interesting, and it's still the least interesting thing in the book because the characters at the center. Listen, you know my opinion at this point if you've watched anything on our channel. To me, the height of art is art that is, especially narrative art, is art that is character-based. It's based on a super deep dive into one specific individual or 2 specific individuals. And when you zoom really far in on what one individual would do, let's say Joel in The Last of Us or Ellie in The Last of Us, then you learn things by zooming way in about what all of us do and how all of us function. And I think it's just like the high point of narrative art is to focus in on characters. And that's what Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow does. I can't recommend this book enough. It's really incredible. The other book that I finally finished, after like a year and a half of reading it very slowly, was For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. I have very little to say. I really liked it. I've read a lot of Hemingway before. This is my first of his longer novels, and I really liked it. Yeah. And I'm probably going to read As I Lay Dying and more Hemingway in the future. Yeah. That's about all I have to say on that. The other things that I've been reading, the older I get, the more I realize that the answer to the question, what have you finished lately in terms of reading, is actually best answered by saying, well, here's what I'm currently reading and what I probably will be reading for many months to come, because I read very slowly these days. I don't have a lot of time for it, and life gets busier and busier, especially as a new parent. I have been reading for multiple months the next couple of books that I'll tell you about, but I still want to talk about them here because I'm really enjoying them so far. Wellness by Nathan Hill. It's a newer novel. I got it recommended to me by one of my, by a family member whose reading taste I really trust. and it has delivered so far. I'm still very early in it, but it's like sort of a modern romance, literary fiction type vibe. Romance is the wrong word for it. Go look up a description. I did not describe that well, but it's really good and really like smart writing for 2024. I've been rereading Infinite Jest. I'm not going to say much about that because what can you say about it? It's one of my favorite books. It's a comfort read for me. So I've been rereading that on audiobook this time, which is really interesting. And the last thing, I've just started reading, I'm probably a third of the way through, a book called Do Hard Things by Steve Magness. Steve Magness is one of the most interesting writers on running, and I love running. And I also coach cross country. I coach middle school cross country. And Do Hard Things has been really interesting from a coaching perspective and a running perspective. It's just, I don't think you need to be a runner to enjoy it. It's one of those like nonfiction books on the topic of like, you've maybe seen them recently, like the book Grit that came out a couple years ago. They're like catty corner to that variety of like nonfiction self-help book that I don't really love. But because they're on a specific topic that I really am interested in, how to do hard things, how to run long distances or run hard or be your very best in those alleyways, I find them really interesting. And Steve Magness is a great writer, no matter how much that self-help genre of book is something that I don't particularly love. Steve Magness is incredible. Okay, what else? I'm taking longer to go through these items than I thought I would. I listened to a lot of podcasts over paternity leave as I was either escaping for a quick run or going to the grocery. We get our groceries delivered these days because it saves us time. As I was running errands around town, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I finally, over paternity leave, after 2.5 years of working at it, I finally finished Not Another D&D podcast. This is one of my favorite podcasts, a very silly D&D podcast. Do you all listen to D&D podcasts? We talk about this a lot over on stream, and I know we have a lot of people who do, but Not Another D&D podcast, one of my favorites, just very silly. I finished all of their episodes finally, like 5-6 years of content probably, and I'm finally caught up, and I just love it so deeply. The other D&D podcast that I'm completely caught up on is actually Worlds Beyond Number, a more recent podcast featuring the likes of Brendan Lee Mulligan, Abria Iyengar, Erica Ishii, Lou Wilson, heavy hitters in the D&D community. They made their own little is not the right word. They made their own powerhouse of a podcast, and it is a slow burn of a D&D story that is maybe the most amazing D&D storytelling I've ever seen or heard, if you will. And I'm finally caught up on that too, which is exciting, which means that I'm sort of out of podcasts to listen to. Feel free to leave your recommendations down below. Speaking of podcasts that I'm currently listening to, though, I'm almost done with Crash Course the Universe, hosted by John Green, a person I very much admire and have read a lot of his books and seen a lot of his videos. And Dr. Emily Mack, I believe, is the astrophysicist. I said earlier I like astrophysics and the cosmos and etc. Crash Course the Universe is just a 10-episode podcast that takes you through the entire history of the universe from the very beginning to currently, and I think even beyond that maybe, to the future. They travel to the future. It's really incredible. I love it. It's a good mix of science and like existential reactions to science, which is my favorite. I think that's actually it. That's the full list of everything that I squeezed in during those moments when my daughter was asleep or when I was awake late at night trying to get her to sleep. I think that's about it. No, there's one more thing. I listen to a lot of Chapel Roan. That's music. I've listened to way too much Chapel Roan, like a lot of people in the world right now, which I also highly recommend. That's mostly everything. I'm sure I missed some stuff, but what have you been listening to recently? What have you watched, seen, played? I have not played a lot of video games. I'm getting back to it, and I'm excited to be. But what have you? I would love to hear from you down below in the comments. What have you been listening to or enjoying recently? I personally get a lot of enjoyment out of talking about things I am enjoying. I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of talking about things I don't enjoy. Funny how that works. Some people do, not me. Thanks so much for watching. This has been our channel update video. As I mentioned, I'm getting back to working more full-time on YouTube and Twitch, which I am more excited for. This has been an incredible period in our lives, but I am so excited to get back to work. I'll see you very soon with another video, and tomorrow with the Forgotten City. I think this promises to be one of the most fun playthroughs we've done recently. As I mentioned, up there with the like Outer Wilds, Return of the Obra Dinn, Tunic, up there in that Hollow Knight, up there in that type of crowd in terms of like beloved, interesting game that has a unique perspective and a lot to offer. I hope that you play it, and if not, I hope you enjoy our series. Either way, I'll see you soon with another video. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Thank you once again, actually for the first time this video, thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you would like to support on Patreon and keep this channel running, there's a link down below in the description. Patreon supporters, you're the freaking best. You got to see this video 24 hours ahead of the rest of the plebes over on YouTube. Mwah, I love you. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.